by for Wyoming Hookin Huntin Outdoors with your host, Drew Kirby.
Hey, this is Luke Combs.
I am Morgan Wallen.
I'm Riley Green.
I'm Travis Denning.
Hey, I'm Aaron Lewis.
Hey, it's Luke Bryan.
I'm Tim McGraw.
What's up? This is Ian Munsick.
Wyoming Hookin Huntin Outdoors.
It is another great week of Wyoming Hooking and Hunting Outdoors, and we're bringing back one of the old G's, Janet.
I know it's been a while since we've heard from Brian, but that should tell you a little bit what it's been like this year in the Casper Game and Fish office, running a little ragged.
Yeah.
And we got him back, though.
I don't know that we've talked to Brian at all in 2024 because of all the busyness.
We have not. It is true. And we went back and actually looked that up because we were trying to give him a little bit of guilt to join us again and share his expertise. So we're glad that he is here.
Yeah, Brian Olson, thank you so much for taking time out of your coffee break and coming over and gracing us with your presence, because it was a big week in Wyoming. It was draw week for residents. Of course, the non-resident draw that happened earlier this summer, but there were some people that were happy and some people that were sad and some people that are a bit confused when it comes to draw days.
Oh, yeah, it is confusing.
Brian, I know that you and I have talked a lot over the last couple of years. When people don't get the draw, they automatically assume it's because the out-of-staters are getting the licenses that they should have had. But really, more than likely, they're just putting in for an area that is overpopulated with people putting in instead of doing a little research.
Yeah, no doubt. I think it's one of those things, playing the drawing odds, and a lot of people just don't understand. A lot of people just put in for the same area year after year after year and hoping that they have better luck this year than the previous years. And, you know, if you really want to draw a license, you should probably look at the drawing odds, and that'll actually improve your chances of drawing. And it's not really all that bad to try new hunt areas. You know, it's one of the things that if you want to do some more hunting in Wyoming and be successful in the drawing, you should probably spend a little bit of time working on those drawing odds or actually contacting your local warden or biologist or game and fish office so we can help you out on that before the drawing period comes up.
When you draw, you automatically will start preparing and planning and scouting around where you're going to hunt. But really, you kind of need to do that before you put in for a license, especially if you're going to be in a certain area.
Yeah, no doubt. I think it's one of those things that it's a year-long process. You know, starting checking out new areas in the fall, especially if you don't draw licenses. It's still the opportunity to go out on some fishing or camping trips during the fall to do some, fishing instead of hunting, or maybe some bird hunting too. And then that way you're kind of learning new areas. So in the future, you can actually look for those areas that are easier to draw.
You mentioned 3 different ways that you could get in. Can you break down the 3 and kind of explain that? Because some people may be confused at the difference between the 3.
Okay, so you're talking about the 3 different draw. I mean, we have the draw period for residents is the month of May. So by May 31st, you have to put in for your elk, deer, and antelope licenses. And then we have the drawing for that in the middle of June. And then if you are not successful, there's the opportunity to go into the second drawing, which is actually next week. So the application period is June 24th through the 28th. So that's this coming week coming up that you have the opportunity to look at what leftover licenses are available and then put in for the draw. And then, of course, then that application period ends on the 28th. And then you have the drawing on the 9th. And then on the 17th is when anything that's left over after the 2 drawing is first come, first serve. So that means you can stop by the game and fish office, your license selling agent, or go online and purchase those licenses that are left over. They're first come, first serve. Whoever wants them can go get them. So that's one of the most important things. And if you don't see anything on there that, kind of works for you, we still have general licenses for residents in, for deer and elk. So, and then researching those areas or what's available around Casper, for deer and elk. And if you don't know those areas very well, that's when you make those contacts or do some more research or go check out those areas before you buy one of those licenses, because you can buy those licenses throughout the whole hunting season.
Yeah. And, it's interesting that people will not try to branch out at all. And like we just talked about, this may be the opportunity to find that new hunt area that you maybe have never explored before.
Yeah, that's true. And then there's one other thing, Drew, that we have coming up this year that's new is the elk season. In most of eastern Wyoming, they have a Type 8 cow-calf license, which is a unlimited license. But just they're going to see that in the leftover drawing because they're unlimited. There's thousands of those available. But the one thing about that, they're in many different hunt areas in eastern Wyoming. Area 7 is probably the closest one to Casper, and which has a lot of public land. But there's some limitations on those Type 8s. A lot of those areas are restricted to private land or maybe restricted off national forest type of stuff. So before they apply for those Type 8s, they should probably work on getting some landowner permission before they get those licenses. And like I say, it's brand new this year. And there's several areas, like I say, in eastern Wyoming, which is mostly private land. And make sure they research on, what specific hunt area they want to hunt. And maybe ask some questions with some landowners on if they can get some permission to hunt.
Yeah, and that's definitely very important to make sure that you have access before you put that draw in, because, nothing's going to be more irritating than getting a draw but not being able to hunt there.
That's correct. It gets very frustrating when you don't have, permission on, private land where a lot of those elk are going to be during the hunting season. And that's where the harvest needs to take place. And then besides that, if you're trying to hunt on some of the public land, you're competing with everybody else trying to do the same thing. So it might be a little frustrating for that. But, taking the time now, to talk to those landowners is the best way to do it.
One other thing that I wanted to cover real quick is when people put in for a license and they don't get the draw, that money is put back on their card within a week or two. So it goes back in and you don't lose that money. What about in the second chance draw?
Exactly the same thing. So if they don't, they're not, if they don't draw, that money will put back on their credit card as soon as we can. And in that way, allows them, to have that money back in their account so they can go back in and do the first come, first serve or buy their general licenses. So we want to make sure that, that money is back on their credit card so they can actually, feel guilty that maybe they should spend it on hunting licenses and go out and do some hunting, I guess.
Yeah, right. And, spend that money on, an over-the-counter tag if you don't get in on that second one. But
correct.
There you go. Exactly.
So I know, Brian, you guys have been really busy at meetings and stuff over the last week, and things look pretty promising for the 2024-25 seasons?
They do. Especially for elk. Certainly in eastern Wyoming, we do have a overabundance of elk, and we're trying to reduce a lot of those herds and trying to some new ideas and like the Type 8s to do that. For deer and antelope, we're waiting on seeing what fawn production is. We do have less antelope licenses in some areas in central Wyoming, and in some areas we have more. So it just depends on the hunt areas. So, for over the last few years, we've had some difficulties with weather and things like that and disease. So some parts of Wyoming still have very low populations of deer and antelope. And you'll find a lot of those people that, especially in western Wyoming, that aren't able to draw because there's so few licenses, are starting to compete with, us folks in central Wyoming, eastern Wyoming, for the licenses that are available because, they want to hunt in Wyoming, but in their areas where they're from, they just don't have the populations to, keep those, licenses up.
So basically what we talked about earlier, where they did a little research of areas that have more licenses and they took advantage of it.
Yeah, most certainly. And I saw a little bit of that last year in the field. I ran into people from Rawlins and from Rock Springs and Pinedale that, those areas had very, very few licenses, especially for antelope, where they had hundreds and hundreds of licenses available. Now they had like 25 or 50 or some, even less than that. So a lot of those people still are, avid hunters. So they're trying new areas where there is the population still available to hunt. So some of us folks in Casper, it's been a little bit harder to draw, and you can take into account that people from Wyoming are coming to those places where we have, some populations of animals that we still have licenses available.
Well, it's always a good idea to keep up to date with the latest and greatest from Game and Fish, and you can do that at the website, wgfd.wyo.gov. And I know Janet was a little sore that they didn't get the licenses that they needed, but guess who got his licenses?
Congratulations. Congratulations, Drew. No, we're
Freezer,
happy for you.
freezer full 2 years in a row.
That's awesome. To see what happens when you hang out with the game and fish more often, Drew. That's what happens, right?
Now, I don't want anybody to say that you've rubbed any luck off on me or anything, because it's all just a random draw.
It is a random draw because
Yeah.
the luck didn't get rubbed off on many of us. So good job, Drew. Good job.
Congratulations.
Hey, thanks, guys. That's very, very nice of you. All right, hang tight. We have more with Game and Fish coming up in a matter of minutes.
It's Wyoming Hookin and Huntin Outdoors.
And we're back with Wyoming Game and Fish, and Janet Millick is still with us. And Janet, I know you guys have been in Pinedale and you've had your meetings, and it's been a big week already since it is draw week. So what people need to know about this meeting is it's not just Janet and her buddies sitting around a campfire shooting the breeze. Like, there's some stuff getting done at this meeting.
Yes, there are some things getting done at this meeting. And actually, Drew, it's a very important meeting. And I'm lucky enough just to be kind of a representative here today to kind of, convey to the public the importance of these meetings and the things that go on.
And these meetings will kind of not really go into effect for things this year, but will help the future. And one of the things that on top of people's minds are the fact that the draw just came out this week. And there were people that, were a little bit angry that they didn't get the draw that they wanted, or they were happy because they got maybe more than they thought they were going to get. But it's meetings like this where a lot of the decisions for that comes into play.
You're absolutely right. And I have Doug Brimmeyer here, who is our Deputy Chief of Wildlife. And so he is one of those that gets to make a lot of the decisions on the ground. And, we often make the jokes about, who got the licenses, ha ha, we didn't draw, or ha ha, we did draw, right? It's been a tough week for a lot of people, and it's been a great week for a lot of people, depending on which side you were on. I know that my family wasn't as lucky as I might have hoped. And so it is kind of a different situation for everybody. And yes, there is so much that goes into putting together, the number of licenses that are allocated. We've talked 1,000 times about this year-long process that we put together, but absolutely, it is actually a multi-year process. And Doug is going to talk to us a little bit about, since he oversees the season setting process right now for the agency, talks about the things that we learn continually and some of the decisions that are made and what people can maybe look forward to.
Yeah. Good morning, Drew. As Janet said, this really is multi-year process, and we look at production and reproduction and the populations, habitat conditions. And, if we just go back to August of last year, our folks around Casper and the rest of the state have been counting antelope, looking at the numbers of fawns. So in another month and a half, you'll see our guys out looking at a lot of those meadows and sagebrush habitats where antelope start to congregate. And we're looking at the numbers of fawns, numbers of bucks. And that kind of starts us off to consider where we can go in the next year. And then once we get through the first of the year, guys will start compiling everything, looking at public comments. And in March, we make some decisions on what kind of quotas we can assign to each of those areas. And that kind of, again, it takes into consideration what the reproduction was, what the habitat looks like, and what our public feedback has been, including some landowner contacts there on private land areas. And then we decide what we want to propose to the commission meeting for that April season setting meeting, which brings us up to today. The commission approves those regulations, and then we conduct the draw. And unfortunately, given the situations we faced with winter conditions the last couple of years, we're starting to see some rebounds, but we had to be fairly conservative in a lot of places of the state in that draw.
So we had talked to Justin Benford a couple of years ago about how the production was really starting to look good. And then we had that horrible stretch where winter really came in and was pretty tough on a lot of antelope and mule deer. And how far in advance or how far out will you project that we may have lower numbers of antelope, licenses in the next couple of years?
Yeah, so we're starting to see some managers bump things up. So southeast of Casper towards Laramie, we did see some substantial increases, and more people were successful in the draw this year. And then if you get up around Gillette, there's always a few leftover licenses up there that go undersubscribed. And so people can always log in and look and see what options they have to get back into it. But pronghorn they have a real high reproductive capacity. And so a lot of them will have twins. And if they have good groceries on the ground, a lot of those animals will survive to the next year, and we'll see an increase in licenses. And so within 4 years, we can start getting back into some business, but we got to have good weather conditions and good habitat. And it comes back to spring rains, some timely moisture in the summer, and then moderate winters, so that doesn't cause those animals to have elevated mortality during the winter.
Depending on where you're talking about, that time frame is tough. But nutrition, fawns, all of that is key. Habitat is key to a lot of that success.
Doug, I know that public comment, one of the most important parts of the information that's collected, people are very vocal, especially if you go to social media or places like that. They're very vocal, but not as many people show up to give their comment at these meetings. And how much impact does it have on your decisions when people come in and really express what they feel?
It's really critical that people stay engaged with our local managers and provide comment when the website shows comment periods open. We go through those very closely, and we try to accommodate those concerns. And as Janet said, we kind of meld the science with the social aspect, and then that ties into the public comment part of it too. It's really an art, and it's I guess imperative that everyone, if they have some concerns, they let the local managers know, and they provide those comments online. And if it's a commission meeting that they can attend, they should come by and let us know what they're thinking.
If people are upset and they don't say anything about it, nothing can be changed if it's not on public file, right?
Right. We won't know that those comments are out there and that those people have concerns about some aspect of management.
And, one of the things, Drew, and we talked about this a little in the intro, that, this is a multi-year process. And just because you want something changed or something implemented on year one, and that's when you made your comment, that doesn't mean just because it didn't happen that year that it's maybe not still in the works and that we're not listening. And there is a lot of feedback that people always say, why do I even give my comment? It doesn't matter. No changes are made. The comments need to be relevant. We're not going to make, a certain hunt area for one person to go hunting on the dates that work for just them. There are so many things that go into these decisions, and that is a huge part of it. But just know, we hear everything. We take it all into consideration. And just an example of being here this week and listening to all the conversations, it's pretty incredible how in depth the managers across the state really go into those comments.
And we've talked about this in the past too, but you're in this industry because you love the outdoors, you love hunting, you love fishing, you love everything that Wyoming offers. You're not here to ruin it for people. And I think people feel that because Game and Fish is a government agency, that's what it's all about. And that's not it at all.
That's right. And I think people should hopefully they can keep in mind that if they have comments, there's always reasons why we can't implement something that they may want because of those biological factors or other social factors that are, considered in a season setting process. Which brings us back to where if you're going through check stations, even in the fall, when people come through, they can give our folks some feedback on how their hunt's going and what they're seeing for wildlife. And those are other things that we'll take into account as we work through the season setting process.
It goes to show how important it is to stop at those check stations. And we talk about this a lot too, Janet, that, people feel like it's a burden, but really it's not.
It all ties back to our decisions that we can help us make the best informed decisions based on what our public and biologically can be sustained.
Just keep in mind, and one of the challenges that I think, Drew, that the agency is kind of facing right now is the turnover with retirements and the recruitment of new individuals. We have so many, and they are kids, young kids on the ground who, are learning the ropes. They're learning all about Wyoming's wildlife, and they're learning to know their neighbors and really meet those folks in their communities. And so it's a perfect opportunity for you to stop by and meet them and have the conversations and really make sure that they hear what you're thinking, because they are, in fact, a part of the decision-making process.
One other thing, Drew, if I can add to that, is that all those small communities, in the end of March is when a lot of these decisions are initially proposed, and the public has a great opportunity to meet our folks on the ground. So last year we had 35 public meetings during the season setting process in small communities across Wyoming. And every time a new regulation that the commission considers is brought to the public, we have community meetings around the state. And so people can watch for those. But in March is when the really big ones are, and we have 35 of them. It's a great time for people to meet our local managers. If they can go look on the website, see when a local community meeting is, and come and meet folks and give us their feedback.
I know we talked a little bit about antelope, and one of the other concerns is mule deer around Wyoming. And how are things looking for the future of mule deer?
As Janet mentioned before, we've had a lot of variable conditions around the state. And so that winter of 2022-23 really hurt us in southwestern Wyoming, up through the Lander area. This year we're seeing, some fawn production back in, stepping back up a little bit. So from, north of Lander up to Cody and to the Bighorns and then down towards Laramie, things are looking a little bit better, but it's going to take us some time, in terms of years to get back to some fawns on the ground and some age structure.
And, Drew, mule deer is such an interesting species right now. We're seeing declines in mule deer populations across the West, not just in Wyoming, for, a plethora of reasons. And so we're getting ready within the agency to really engage the public in a lot of different communication efforts on mule deer. So there are a lot of things going on that we are getting ready to kind of have conversations over kind of this summer and fall and early next year, to let people know and to hear and listen, because that's so important, because, mule deer are an iconic species that the Wyoming Game and Fish Department manages, and we're fully aware of some of the challenges that are ahead for us in that arena.
Well, it definitely is good information, and if you want to find out more, always reach out to the regional office if you're here in Casper or wherever you are, and wgfd.wyo.gov, a great resource. You can get contact info and all the information you need there. And Doug, we appreciate you spending some time and breaking off some of that knowledge for us.
All right. Thanks, Drew.
Thanks, Drew.
It's Wyoming Hookin and Huntin Outdoors.
It's Drew and Brian from Rocky Mountain Discount Sports. And Brian, we've had a weird little few weeks here. We've talked about how, things in June still could be wintertime at some points in Wyoming, and parts of the states got snow this week. So we've had, conditions have been a little different over the last couple of days than they had been the prior couple of weeks. And now people are kind of scrambling to make sure that they've got some of the supplies that they're going to need if they're going camping for summer vacation.
Yeah, we thought summer was finally here. The weather was starting to warm up. This next week we're supposed to be in the 90s in a lot of places of the state, and this last week you wake up and it's 48 degrees. Yeah. And it really didn't get that much warmer. It's like, what happened to summer?
Yeah, well, and we always talk about it. If you're going to plan on the weather, you're not going to do anything here in Wyoming, especially now that families are going out. We're down camping spots up on Casper Mountain, so people are having to go out. So they got to get all the supplies before they leave town, because it's, could be a pain in the butt to come from 2 hours away.
Yeah, and there's still plenty of places to go enjoy our great country, and you might have to plan a little bit more. You might have to drive a little further, but there's still a lot of good opportunities, and as long as you plan ahead and make the right arrangements, you're going to have some great time out in the wilderness.
We've spent a little bit of time over the last couple of weeks talking about cooler technology. And when you go a little further, you're going to need ice. You're going to need food to last a little longer. And with the Yetis and with the Wild Gear, I mean, they're designed just for that.
Yeah, I had a good conversation with a customer earlier this week, and the biggest problem from a retailer side is that we're just not selling as many coolers because people aren't having to replace them. Back in the day, the old rusty Coleman, the hinges would break off or the handles would bust, and these new rotomold coolers they're built to last, and they're great. They can withstand just about anything. And I think if you buy a cooler today, it's probably going to last you 25 or 30 years. And
technology changes on these coolers too. I've seen some of the new models that they're coming out with that has a dry storage underneath the bottom ice chest part of it. So that's even going another level up.
Oh, there's ice chests now that have radios built into them.
It's crazy. You can sit out in the woods, listen to Hookin' and Huntin' while you're having a beer.
Open the cooler to get a beer, and it says America.
You got to love it. And that's one of the great parts about the outdoor industry is everything evolves, but yet it still kind of stays the same. Guys want what they want, and they get what they want, and that's what they get when they come here to Rocky Mountain Discount Sports is, you come in and you may have that advanced technology on stuff, but you still have all the basic stuff too.
Yeah, and we say we get what we want, but we didn't all get drawn what we wanted this last week.
Oh, that's true. That's true.
But that being said, guys that actually were successful in the draw this last week, they're looking at new rifles, what calibers they need for whatever animals they drew for, and optics have been a big program this last week. So. Yeah, we're seeing a lot of people that are really excited, and a few with a few tears.
Yeah, and I was lucky enough, and you were lucky enough to get the draw that we needed and wanted. And last year, I remember getting that draw, and then all of a sudden it was like, okay, now I got to wait all the way till November. Yep. What am I going to do? Well, I'm going to go out. I'm going to start shooting that rifle. I'm going to start getting things to save a little money, instead of spending a lot of money at once.
Yeah, and that's kind of the nice part about it is maybe every year you just kind of upgrade one piece of your equipment, so if I know you set up your gun last year, but you might have to upgrade your pack this year, or maybe a new pair of binoculars, or something that just kind of fits into that equation. And we've got it all, and we have a layaway program. So the nice part is that you've got 3 to 4 months to really make that significant purchase and put it on layaway now. Put 20% down and put $20-$30 a week on it. By the time that rolls around, it'll be paid off.
Yeah, don't forget that that program is great. And we just had Father's Day, and one of the other great things about Rocky Mountain Discount Sports is you can get gift cards. And if you got a hunter in the family, or maybe you have a son or daughter that's going to get to go out and hunt for their first time, so maybe get them a gift card to go out and buy their own gear.
Yeah, it's always nice to open up a present, but in today's world, there's just too many options about different things. You can't just say, "Yeah, I want to come in and buy my husband a pair of binoculars," and there's just too many options.
Mm-hmm.
So get a gift card for whatever value you want to spend on the guy, and then let him come pick it out. And if he wants to pay the difference or doesn't buy something as expensive as what you maybe got a gift card for, he'll use it on ammo or some other equipment.
Yeah, and speaking of ammo, we were concerned early about what the ammo supply was going to be, and how we looking for this year?
Right now, we're sitting in great shape, and we just got a couple really big orders of ammo in that we've had on back order since probably 21, 22. So now's a good time to get those rifles, start the sight-in process. See what you've got for bullets at home, but if you can't replace the bullets that you have been shooting because they've been discontinued or just no longer making them, you might have to re-sight in with a new one that's out there. So availability is looking pretty good right now, but don't wait till the last minute, because it never fails. It was here last week and now it's not.
Right. Come on in and check them out here at Rocky Mountain Discount Sports.
It's Wyoming Hookin' and Huntin' Outdoors.
Drew and Brian back at Rocky Mountain Discount Sports, and Brian, fishing has been hot for you. You have been down to Glendo quite a bit over the last few weeks. Obviously, we're there for the the Stampede a couple of weeks ago, and then you had a tournament, and then you've been fishing, and it's been pretty good.
You know, it's definitely been a little different than previous years, a little bit of a challenge. I mean, the fish just aren't always where you think they are, you know, and some of my favorite spots, you know, either I haven't been able to fish because it's been too windy, or the conditions just weren't right, or the water's too low and weeds are out of the ground, it's just you know, you have to kind of just look for different structures that you're used to fishing, and don't be afraid to move, and again, trust your electronics.
So we have been talking a little bit about how Glendo, the water levels were dropping really rapidly there for a while, and then they kind of leveled off.
Right.
And then next week is the tournament over in Boise, and Boise's getting a lot of water, and so it really is going to be kind of a different situation over the next few weeks.
Yeah, I mean, all these reservoirs this time of year have their own challenges. You know, they're designed for irrigation, so you know, you just never really know when the demand for water is going to be out of each one of these reservoirs, and then it's always hard to outguess what the Bureau of Rec's doing, anyways. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, we've got that tournament at Boise coming up, and the water conditions over there. I mean, the runoff out of the Wind Rivers is just screaming. It's almost coming in at like 7,000 cubic feet. So that's pretty fast. So it's creating a lot of mud on that south end of the lake. And we're hoping that, you know, a lot of that runoff, especially with as warm as it's going to be this, you know, next week, that water will get melted, get down to the lake, and maybe calm down a little bit.
So it is still a week away from that tournament. So can it clear up in that amount of time if midweek it slows down a little bit, or will it still be a little bit muddy by then?
Yeah, if the inflow slows down, and then, you know, we don't have wind that's just, you know, turbining it up, you know, it's very possible that entire lake will be fishable. It's also very possible that there'll be a big mud line, you know, maybe all the way down to Tough Creek. And if that's the case, then that's just going to concentrate the anglers into other, you know, northern parts of the lake. And
that's kind of the fun of, you know, fishing like that, mm-hmm. where you're out, you've already pre-fished, you kind of got an idea where you're going, and, you know, you got to call an audible on the water.
Yeah, you know, and a lot of guys, you know, will just show up on Friday night, you know, go to the rules meeting, and then, you know, jump on the water, and they just want to memory fish and just, you know, fish from past experiences, which in a lot of cases does work, but you know, you still have to kind of keep an eye on what the water conditions are. And, you know, if your favorite spot is down on Badwater or Poison Creek, and we've got, you know, 7,000 cubic feet of water coming in at a time, and you're not watching those numbers, you're going to be surprised when you get down there and it looks like chocolate milk.
Yeah, right. And fishing probably won't be the same as it normally would be. And, you know, we haven't heard much about Pathfinder, but I have seen that a lot of folks have been out there and you know, catching some fish.
Yeah, you know, I've got a couple newer anglers that have been out there and kind of, you know, talking about what they're doing, and a lot of them are just kind of pulling worm harnesses or pitching jigs. And I know of a couple guys that have caught some really nice fish. It's nice that they're releasing those fish, those bigger ones. You know, Pathfinder is one of those lakes that, you know, you definitely have an opportunity to catch a fish of a lifetime. You know, a personal best is going to probably come out of there. And to catch a 28 to 30 inch fish or 32 inch fish, you know, isn't completely uncommon. You're going to have to sift through a lot of 12, 13, 14 inch fish. But it's definitely, if you're a trophy hunter, you know, that's definitely one of those areas where, you know, you're going to have that opportunity. And, you know, I think it's pretty cool to be able to catch one of those trophies, take some good pictures, take a measurement, release that fish, and have a nice replica made for the memory, and then give somebody else that opportunity to catch that fish somewhere down the road.
It's exciting as a spectator on a situation like that, because with the Stampede, people will come down to the dock on the final weigh-in of the day, and when someone says, "Oh, we got a big one," it's like watching golf, where everybody's going to where Tiger Woods is playing. You know, the good golfers are going.
Yeah, I love watching people on the docks. You know, they're like, "You're just letting all those fish go?" Yeah. I'm like, well, yeah, that's what we do. It's catch and release, you know. And you know, some people just don't understand. They're like, but you're letting all the groceries go away.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, it's like leaving the tailgate open when you leave Walmart or something.
Yeah, but the best part is it's if you're going down to fish after the tournament, you can take those, some of those fish with you.
Well, sure, yeah. I mean, we're putting them right back. They're right there in the marina. How hard could they be to catch?
Yeah, right. Although it was funny, we were talking. I can't remember if it was the first tournament or the second tournament, but someone was talking about catching a fish near the marina that they had caught at a different part of the lake. And,
right.
You don't really think about fish going that far, and they don't need to really, but they kind of do sometimes.
Yeah, and I was looking at a study that they did up in Canada, and a biologist was doing a study with fish mortality, and they were putting those RFIDs in the fish, and they could track the fish, what they did. So they could tell whether or not they were consumed by a pelican, or they could tell if they just died and sunk to the bottom, But one of the ones that caught my attention was from the release where they released the fish. That fish traveled 12 kilometers overnight.
Wow!
I don't know, is that 13 miles or whatever it is? But it traveled 13 miles or 12 kilometers overnight back to the area that it was originally caught.
That's crazy.
Is it, you hear stories like, a guy's camping with their dog and all of a sudden 3 days later, the dog ends up back in Casper at their house. It's like, do these animals just kind of know like, hey, this is right. My home and I'm going to get back to that? Or was it just coincidence that they were chasing water current or, I don't know, but it'd be interesting. And I'd love to work with Game and Fish on a study like that, with a post-mortality study to see what these fish do after they're caught. Because I think after being in a live well and stressed a little bit, they get down into a certain water column to kind of regain their senses and like, okay, I'm back home. Everything's good. Let's just get back into business.
So it kind of like the post-traumatic stress disorder that they have is, because you see some of these fish and when you're at the weigh-in, some of them are very, very anxious. Like you could tell there's, and then some of them are just like, all right, come on now, let's get this done.
I've been in a boat for an hour and I just went on a big boat ride.
Yeah.
Where am I at now?
Come on.
Like, might as well just put a bag over my head and shake me around. I don't know.
Yeah. But hey, if you want to get out and enjoy what we have here, we encourage it. And that's really what this show is all about. And that's why we give you so much information. And if Brian's in store and you have questions, stop on in and check him out here at Rocky Mountain Discount Sports.
Wyoming Hookin and Huntin Outdoors with Drew Kirby. If you have a question, want to make a comment, or have an idea for a show topic, message us on the My Country mobile app. Wyoming Hookin and Huntin Outdoors.